voudrais simplement peut-être faire un mot sur le type de collectif en fait, qui nous rassemble aujourd'hui et ce qui pourrait être pensé et fait sur ce collectif en perspective de la prochaine masterclass donc, qui aura lieu en janvier-février 2019. So maybe I'm going to do it in English because I started taking notes in English and I guess it will be a last occasion to understand something for our guests from abroad. So about this second edition of the Metrolab Masterclass, we will try again to provide to the ERDF program and to the ERDF project leaders some sort of reflexive support and practical proposals that would have some meaning for them, hopefully. So this is already what we tried to do during our previous masterclass in 2017. I think that most of you have now our book, Designing Urban Inclusion. And you will see in this book that some of the proposals that the researchers and students elaborated did have an impact on the project leaders and on the project, but maybe we can do even better for the next masterclass in terms of the impact of our works and reflections. So I think we really need to keep on improving our method of work in order to build and to organize a community of inquiry, as pragmatists would say, a community made of project leaders, administrative agents, and urban researchers. And so we really need to keep on working on the coordination of the various forms of intelligence that collaborate in this process. I just want to say a word about ourselves, academic researchers, and what we have to do in order to improve maybe this methodology that's supposed to improve the relationship with the non-academics and who are our guests in this lab, in a space like this one. I think that the improvement of the methodology has to do with a quality of modesty that we need to improve and to increase. In the perspective of the next masterclass, I believe that we researchers have to be even more modest in the way we consider our own knowledge and the knowledge of practitioners. And to be modest doesn't mean not to be ambitious. We may be ambitious, elaborate, articulated on a theoretical, conceptual level, but we have to consider this conceptual knowledge in a pragmatic way. What does it produce? Does it produce effects? Does it have consequences on the urban actors' ways and practices or not? If it doesn't, maybe it's worthless. So we have to find other concepts, other theories, and try again. We have to consider our own theoretical inputs as a form of intelligence among other forms of intelligence in an ecology of knowledge, as Bernard proposed yesterday. It must be considered in relation to more practical forms of intelligence. We also have to consider that our form of theoretical knowledge is not necessarily more complex than other forms of knowledge. It's very difficult for academic people to consider that their form of knowledge would not be more complex than other ones. But I think it's a reality. I'm not convinced that university research allows us to embrace a more complex world than the one of the actors. So this word of conclusion is not exactly a conclusion, but an invitation to keep on working with the Metrolab team and our partners on the outlining of a better epistemology for applied research in the perspective of the next masterclass, and thus in the perspective of a better collaboration with urban actors. This work for a still better epistemology of action research would follow maybe two connected lines. First, a better consideration of the practitioner's perspective, its own form of intelligence, and its specific level of complexity. Second, a better awareness of academic research's own limits, the ways in which our theoretical conceptual form of knowledge is itself a reduction of the urban world's complexity. I want to say a word about what has been discussed yesterday in the ecology of knowledge session. The diagram that Bernard showed contrasted transversal thinking on one side and bureaucratic logic on the other. You remember that slide, right? So Bernard proposed to rethink this relationship between transversal thinking and bureaucratic logic, meaning that transversal thinking was brought by interdisciplinary research and bureaucratic logic was practiced by the administrative agents. So here I guess that it's not Bernard's intent, but we can understand, of course, that transdisciplinary thinking or transversal thinking is good and bureaucratic logic is bad. And I think it would be an important thing to abandon this way to address the relation between urban research and urban actors, and just a provocation for discussion. First, if we stay with this example, we must admit that we, university scholars, know very little about the bureaucratic world and the bureaucratic logic. Here I just want to mention a sociologist called Niklas Luhmann, a German sociologist, very famous for his theoretical developments, but actually, at first, Niklas Luhmann was an administrative agent in the Ministry of Culture in Germany. And actually, he started to be irritated by bad sociology about administrations and modes of governance. And he decided as an administrative official to start to study sociology and to develop his own theory, which will be called the theory of social systems, that has a certain connection with our event of these 2 days. But someone like Luhmann started from this understanding of the administrative complexity and realized that sociologists knew almost nothing about it from the inside and observed it from the outside, starting from their self-referenced forms of meaning, vocabularies, and concepts. And he really thought that sociology should change its ways and consider every sphere of the social world as a system developing its own logic, its own form of meaning that cannot just be observed from the outside or reduced from the outside. So Francis Chateau-Renaud said yesterday that he liked the notion of milieu because it had something irreducible. You can never really represent a milieu. The milieu of the administrative actor can never be the milieu of the external observer and can never be represented as a whole by the external observer. We must thus acknowledge that this milieu has its own complexity. The bureaucratic world is a very complex world. Actually, the bureaucratic procedures are meant to deal with phenomenal levels of complexity in order to reduce this form of complexity. And in a way, it is similar to what concepts and theories do for the university scholar. It enables him or her to reduce complexity. What are the levels of complexity that bureaucratic knowledge deals with? Complexity due to the volume and the continuous flow of administrative operations. Legal complexity. We know, we discussed that earlier today, that most of urban researchers don't take into account, don't consider the whole legal complexity that goes with their urban objects. The bureaucratic knowledge also considers the complexity induced by the political system and the pressure of the political system on the administrative system. That was something that Serge Kempeners told yesterday. Also, a specific relationship and a complex relationship to history and to time. An administration has a temporal longevity and persistence that research has not. The administration and its work and its logics never stops as research has its specific times. So when we propose administrations or public organizations to work with us and to develop a reflexive interdisciplinary dialogue, we do not create complexity for them. We add another layer of complexity to the already existing layers. And this is why vulgarization is an awful word to talk about the way, the very condescending way through which urban researchers should communicate with the outside world. the act of translation of that vulgarization is supposed to transform something complex into something simple. The process of communication that we need is one that transforms a knowledge that is theoretically complex into a knowledge that considers the complexity of practice. I think that it would be better to see it that way than through a logic of vulgarization. So first, we had to consider the urban actors' complex form of knowledge. And second, we, the university scholars, we must consider our interest for transversality, interdisciplinarity, and complexity, that this interest is itself a reduction. Academic research, even the one that claims to embrace complexity, is a reductionist practice. What are the levels of complexity that are reduced in our own practice of interdisciplinarity at Metrolab? First, we work with 2 French-speaking universities and not with the Dutch-speaking universities. It was easier. I mean, at one time, it was something, I guess, that reduced complexity. We gathered disciplines, but not all the disciplines that are relevant for urban research. We are sociologists, architects, and urban planners mostly, and geographers. So we do not have economists in our team, for instance. This is another way to reduce complexity. We also reduce the frictions with the surrounding world in a very nice venue like this one. It's very comfy, it's very, very nice, very cozy. We have a certain possibility to develop communication and a reflection that is totally closed from the outside. We have also this at Metrolab. We have a very nice studio, and right on the street we have migrant people waiting for their daily possibility to work, and it's a way also to be cut from the immediate world, and that maybe we consider the necessary reduction of complexity in order to produce a reflection on the city. Another form of reduction is a temporal one, like this one. We meet and we gather all these forms of intelligent people and forms of life during an event, a moment. It will be the same again in the masterclass, but it's true. We reduce this possibility to produce collective intelligence to events and to moments. So we have to consider and understand these forms of reduction, and maybe many other ones, and they all suppose a form of modesty. Okay, so I guess I'm going to be... I have 1 minute or two, so I will just try to conclude. So I think we need to understand that the interaction between the urban research world and the urban actors world is a big mess, and mostly a big misunderstanding. If it's the case, it's because we don't use language with the same purpose. I think that, as a conclusion, a short words on semiotics, the theory of signs, could be useful and could help to understand these problems of communication. First, we have people using, who do an abundant use of a conceptual language, and conceptual language function is to open new possibilities to represent the real. Yesterday we heard concepts like forensic ecologies, or saprophilic geographies, or biophilia. These are all notions supposed to create new possible meanings, and for that they convey a poetic or metaphoric or iconic dimension. So this is a certain way to refer to language, or to use language with a certain purpose and certain intent, and a very specific form of meaning. Then you have more... you have theoretical statements whose function is to state general rules, generalities. Then you have, like we had earlier today with Brian, we have the narrative language. I have a story for you, right? Brian gave us an example, but narratives are also a way for instance, for inhabitants or so-called ordinary citizens to produce their own form of complex knowledge. The language, finally, the language of the practitioners in charge of urban projects develop another form of meaning, a very indexical form of meaning, if we want to use this concept of the indexical or the index. Actors are concerned with reality, with the real, and the signs that allow us to deal with the real are called index. Indexes are signs that are strictly contextual, that are directly connected to situations. You know that the conversations of people working on urban projects are loaded with indexes. It's very easy to lose the track or to lose the thread if you just miss one of these indexes. They point at specific things on the map. You have to be attentive to what they're pointing at. They use proper nouns. Proper nouns are indexes. They talk about specific persons, not a kind or a type of actor. They talk about Mr. this or Mrs. that. They talk about specific places, street names, this specific location. All of these references are mentioned by their names, and it's very easy to not to follow that, especially for people coming from the outside, I guess. They also use indexes of time, place, dimension, and so on. So they don't talk in general terms. They have a very particular and specific way to refer to the world. And this is something that I experienced because I happen to have urbanists and architects friends, and really I don't follow their conversation. Actually, I get bored pretty easily, I must admit, because they're always super indexical in what they try to mean. They're specific, and something in me craves for more generality in what they're saying. And my attention decreases, and I sort of just lose the point. And I guess it's the same when I speak after that, and I try to generalize, and they're like, okay, here we go again. So I think that we're in this kind of configuration of, we all use different forms of signs, and we give attention, we focus on very different things. And attention is very important in an event like that, because something will draw our attention because we recognize a form of a language, or un jeu de langage in Wittgenstein's words, which is a very pretentious way to speak. Sorry. We recognize a language game, a jeu de langage, and then suddenly we're here again, right? But then there is this other jeu de langage, and we sort of get to sleep. Sometimes literally, right? Or no. Okay, so there is this very specific division of semiotic labor. We use different regimes of signs, and we are specialized in a certain regime of sign, the sociologists, the urban planners, maybe the inhabitants. And I think that a workshop like we had today, and like we will have in the future, is a situation where this strict division of semiotic labor changes and is shift in something more complex, and something where sociologists have to take a pen to draw something on the table, or somebody, some administrative agents will try to conceptualize the intent of, or the logic or the meaning of its project. So, okay, I just wanted to need that in the perspective of the next masterclass, we have to understand how these different regimes of science interact, and to try to develop a form of curiosity for the world of the other and for the semiotics of the other. His ways or her ways to talk about the world and to interpret the world. We have to develop this sort of mutual interest for the form of life and the way to mean of the other. So this conclusion was not, as you understood, it was not a self-celebration of Metrolab. It was more a form of self-criticism. I think that this self-criticism is important. As researchers interested in action research, in applied research, maybe we are more sensitive than others to these questions. It also means that we have to go further and deeper than others in the self-criticisms and in the reflection on the possibility to improve our relationship to urban action and to city politics.